Picture this, it's 1901. You're a sponge diver off a tiny Greek island called Antikythera. You're looking for sponges, and instead, you find a shipwreck. Among the statues and pottery, there's this lump of corroded bronze. Nobody pays it much attention. Nobody realizes they've just found the most sophisticated technological artifact of the ancient world, a device so advanced that nothing like it would appear again for 14 centuries. Today, we're going to unravel that lump of bronze. And trust me, by the end, you'll be questioning everything you learned about primitive ancient civilizations. Let's dive in. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a shipwreck and a lump of metal nobody wanted, move through the moment someone realized it was a machine, explore exactly what it could do. Spoiler, it predicted eclipses and tracked the Olympics. Then we'll peek inside its intricate gear system, debate who might have built it, meet the obsessive researchers who spent decades decoding it, and finally ask why a 2,000-year-old gadget still captivates us. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride through ancient Greek ingenuity. So here's how it starts. 1901, sponge divers are working the waters around Antikythera, a tiny island between Crete and the Peloponnese. One of them, Elias Studiatis, surfaces in a panic. He says he's seen a heap of dead naked people on the seabed. Turns out it's a Roman cargo ship, packed with bronze and marble statues. And in the middle of all this treasure, a corroded green lump of bronze and wood. It's about the size of a modern shoebox, 34 by 18 by 9 centimeters. The crew hauls it up along with everything else, and it ends up in a museum courtyard. For months, nobody gives it a second glance. The greatest technological artifact of antiquity was literally sitting in a pile of stuff. May 17, 1902. It's a Saturday. Valerios Stais, a Greek archaeologist, is working through the backlog of artifacts from the Antikythera wreck. He picks up that corroded lump and notices it's cracked open slightly. Inside, he sees something that stops him cold. A gear wheel. Perfectly formed teeth. Precision engineering in something that's over 2,000 years old. Now, you have to understand the context here. In 1902, everyone knew the ancient Greeks didn't make gears. Gears were medieval technology. So when Stais announced his discovery, the academic establishment basically said, "Nice try, but no." It took decades for the world to catch up to what he saw that afternoon. The lump wasn't junk, it was a computer. Okay, so we've got a box of gears. What was it for? Let me paint you the full picture, because when you hear what this device could do, you're going to wonder why I'm impressed by smartphones. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just a clock or a simple calculator. It was a portable planetarium, an eclipse predictor, a lunar phase tracker, a solar calendar, and it told you when the Olympics were coming up. All of this with nothing but bronze gears and a hand crank around 100 years before Julius Caesar was born. Let's walk through each capability. Let's break this down into 4 superpowers. First, the device could pinpoint where the sun and moon were on any given day, and it used something called the Metonic cycle, a 19-year pattern the Babylonians discovered and the Greeks adopted. Turn the crank, dial in a date, and the pointers moved. Second, eclipses. Using the Saros cycle, that's 223 lunar months, the mechanism could predict when and where eclipses would happen decades into the future. Imagine being a priest or a politician who could predict a solar eclipse. That's serious power. Third, the 5 known planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, their positions were modeled on spinning dials. And fourth, because apparently the cosmos wasn't enough, there was a dial that counted down to the Panhellenic Games, including the Olympics. This thing was a calendar, an astronomical computer, and a sports almanac, all in a shoebox. Here's where it gets mind-blowing. Inside that shoebox were at least 37 bronze gears, meshing together in what engineers call a differential gear train. Now, the differential gear was supposedly invented in the 16th century. The Antikythera mechanism had one 1,400 years earlier. You turned a single hand crank on the side, and everything moved in sync. The sun pointer, the moon pointer, the eclipse dial. The front face had 2 concentric scales, the zodiac on the outside, the Egyptian calendar on the inside, because the Greeks used the Egyptian calendar for astronomy. Flip it over, and the back had 2 massive spiral dials, one for the Metonic cycle, one for the Saros eclipse cycle. And get this, researchers found thousands of inscribed characters on the plates, some smaller than a millimeter tall, acting as an instruction manual. The ancient Greeks built a device with a user manual. Let that sink in. So who built this marvel? We don't have a signature, so we're playing detective. Two main suspects and a fascinating supporting cast. On one side, Archimedes of Syracuse, the Da Vinci of the ancient world. Cicero, the Roman writer, describes seeing a bronze sphere that modeled the heavens, built by Archimedes himself, carried off as war booty by a Roman general. That account is tantalizing. On the other side, Hipparchus of Rhodes, the greatest observational astronomer of his age. He calculated lunar cycles, catalogued stars, and worked on Rhodes, which happens to be exactly where some scholars think the mechanism was built. The lunar motion modeled in the gears matches Hipparchus's theory so precisely that many researchers think it's his work, or at least from his school. There's also Posidonius of Rhodes, a generation later, and a mysterious student of Hipparchus, mentioned in the sources. The truth is, we're still debating. And that mystery is part of what makes this artifact so compelling. The study of this device is almost as fascinating as the device itself. After Stace's discovery in 1902, it kind of languished. Then in the 1950s, a brilliant and stubborn physicist from Yale, Derek de Solla Price, became obsessed. He spent 16 years studying the fragments, and in 1974 he published Gears from the Greeks, essentially telling the entire Western academic world, "You have been underestimating the ancient Greeks. Wake up." But the real revolution came in 2005, when a team called the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project brought in a massive X-ray CT scanner, the kind used for aircraft turbines, and scanned every fragment. Suddenly, they could read inscriptions buried inside the corrosion, trace gear trains no one had seen before. And just in 2022, researchers proposed a specific calibration date, December 23, 178 BCE. We are still right now actively learning from a device built over 2,000 years ago. Here's the kicker. The reason this device matters so profoundly. After the Antikythera mechanism was built, around 100 BCE, the knowledge of how to make something this complex vanished. The Roman Empire rose and fell. The Dark Ages came and went. And not until the 14th century, that's 1,400 years later, did mechanical astronomical clocks appear in Western Europe that matched this level of complexity. Think about that gap. 14 centuries. The entire history of the Roman Empire, the rise of Christianity, the fall of Constantinople, the Crusades, the Black Death, all of that happened in the time between this device and its peers. The Antikythera mechanism whispers a humbling question to us. What else did the ancients achieve that we don't know about? What other marvels are still buried under the sea, waiting for a sponge diver to stumble across them? Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now go forth and never call the ancient Greeks primitive again.